Please note, for maximum picture quality, it may be necessary to adjust the tracking control on your VCR.
Back in the 90s, I was a pop idol. And when I was on stage, people adored me, which led to the stalkers. People died. I soon started spiralling into mental health crisis and lines of reality blurred, and the only thing that gave me any comfort was my favourite podcast, Adjust Your Tracking. I am Liam Delaney, one host.
And I am Oliver Jones, the other host.
And welcome to the show, guys. How are you doing, Ollie?
I'm good. I've had a silly day today.
Oh, why's that?
To be honest, like anything that happens of mild interest at the moment is a bonus. But my razor broke while I was shaving today, so I had to spend half the day with half a moustache and half a beard, and it was all patchy all over the place. I went to have lunch with Caroline, and she didn't realise for a good half an hour.
Oh dear.
Anything was wrong with my face. She just kept looking at me again. What's wrong with your face?
Does she not really look at you? Is that what we're learning?
Probably. So yeah, that's my story of the day. Woo.
How did the razor break?
It didn't break, just because it's like a chargeable
see.
beard trimmer. It just died.
I see. I thought you meant like the blade broke on it.
And all the viewers have turned off. No.
The viewers?
Listeners.
Do you remember Mate's podcast with Michael Ian Black and the guy from Ed? What's his name again? Tom.
Well, they're
Cavanaugh.
both in Ed. The food one.
Yeah.
What was that called?
It's called Mike and Tom Eat Snacks.
That was it, yeah.
Yeah. They used to refer to their listeners as viewers. And they used to always be like, well, the viewers out there, of course they're not viewers, they're listeners. And it was I think it was something like that anyway. The mateys will be getting at me for not misremembering the memes from a podcast from years ago.
Wasn't isn't he in like The Flash now or something?
Yeah, he has been really good in The Flash, actually.
I've never watched any of those shows.
I watched maybe the first 3 seasons of The Flash. My problem with The Flash is actually there's just too much of it. It's like old school TV when there's like 25 episodes a season.
Oh, you don't need to do that. Why?
No,
Why?
and there's no way I'm catching up and I'm getting to watch all that. It's just not happening.
8 to 10 is the ideal number, I think, for a.
I absolutely agree. I even think the Netflix Marvel ones are too long. I get fed up with them. I get to about episode 12 and I'm done, and there's still kind of sometimes 4 or 5 episodes left or something, and I'm just.
I'd say the same about Stranger Things, but they're only like 7 episodes, and I get well bored. I still watch it though. I don't know why.
I made it 1 episode into season 2 of Stranger Things, and I was like, no, I'm not
Done.
interested.
So, what have you been up to?
God, I don't know. Same old. I was thinking of something though. Talking of the Flash.
Oh, go on then.
I was thinking how like the majority of stuff that I like in superheroes doesn't actually exist outside of comics. They haven't actually ever moved the characters and the people I really like into kind of films and stuff like that. Which is kind of weird now that the world's obsessed with superheroes. I still feel a bit kind of marginalised in the fact that I love all this stuff that doesn't actually exist to a wider audience yet. Like, Doom Patrol is the one for me, and I actually really like the TV show, so that's good. But the Doom Patrol was always a huge like characters for me, and I'm glad they got that out. But even like Booster Gold, Kyle Rayner, the Green Lantern, the way I see Superman, All-Star Superman. And and Starman as well. And Starman's like just such a fantastic comic that only exists as a comic, And Animal Man.
The problem,
as well.
I think, the problem with Warner Brothers. I mean, I might be incorrect, but they haven't got like a Kevin Feige that will kind of like spearhead all the films and say, "All right, I want this made, this made, this made, this made." They have to like.
Jeff Johns meant to be that though.
Not really. I don't think so. He didn't have that kind of power. I think he just oversaw a lot of things. But I think it comes down to filmmakers going, I'd like to make that film. And I think it just boils down to every filmmaker wants to make Batman, and that's it, really.
It seems to be that way, doesn't it? Because they can't even get a Flash movie out.
Yeah, it seems ridiculous. You'd think that would be one that would have already been out by now. At least, like, all the Justice League members should have had a solo movie by now.
And Martian Manhunter should exist as a Justice League character.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I think if I remember, because I for some reason I hate myself when I listen to that Zack Snyder commentary track. I think one of those characters in that film, I think he's like the general in Man of Steel, and he's in Batman v Superman. I think he's supposed to be Martian Manhunter in that universe, and would have.
Okay, fair enough.
But
I mean, it doesn't count unless you put it in.
Exactly, yeah.
But it just seems weird. I was just thinking about today how like comics are so huge, and the stuff I love is still doesn't exist. You know, like it's still not been spearheaded. And I mean, I've always been a DC person, so most of the stuff I talk about is going to be DC stuff. But the DC stuff that exists doesn't I don't know, it doesn't show the stuff I love about DC really.
I guess the argument is always that DC superheroes are so stoic and godlike that it's hard to put them onto film. But I don't know. I mean, Wonder Woman was all right.
I liked Wonder Woman. I think the new Wonder Woman trailer looked amazing, actually.
Yeah, she looks great in a gold armor.
Yeah, totally.
Is that's like the Kingdom Come armor, isn't it?
Oh, I guess it is actually. I didn't think of that, but yeah, I guess it is. And of course, you got Max Lord as the villain in that, which I am so hyped for. I love Max Lord, and I think he could be really good on film. So,
and who's playing that? Isn't it Pedro Pascal?
Yeah,
it's the Mandalorian.
The Mandalorian, yeah. So I'm really hyped to see his portrayal of it. Saying that, actually, this actually to backtrack on that a little bit, the Shazam movie, Captain Marvel Shazam movie, the fact that Mr. Mind was in that was amazing.
That was great.
It worked for me so much. I was so happy and so excited.
That might be my favourite of those DC films, I think.
Fair enough.
I just think it was just so joyful, and I just really... Zachary Levi, I would have never thought of him as a superhero, but it just worked.
It really did, yeah. It really did just work. Just work for me.
The Superman cameo was a bit weird at the end.
Yeah.
Like, if it was Henry Cavill's face, then yeah, it would have worked. But also, you don't see him earlier on in the film. If he'd had an interaction with Superman,
yes,
which I have a feeling that may have been originally on the cards.
Yeah, there was,
because he could have been that kind of guide that he needed to kind of put him on the right path of being a hero.
I would have liked that, because I think DC Universe needs that. It's like I said quickly earlier, like my Superman hasn't ever been on screen. Like the way they portray Superman is not Superman. I don't know which character they're choosing, and putting him in Shazam like that would have actually been a way of putting real Superman back into the pictures. This kind of icon of Superman, not this kind of weird brooding energy that they seem to want to kind of have from him, which is just boring, really.
I think Henry Cavill's got it in him to do that, though.
Me too.
I just wish they gave him that opportunity, but
yeah, just give him a Grant Morrison script and please go with it.
Did I ever tell you I bumped into him once at the Empire Awards?
Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
Wow.
Me and Rob were in a phone booth, not a phone booth, like a photo booth. Phone booth.
Not Bill and
photo booth. And we walked out of it, and I kind of backed out of it with my back out. And as I turned around, I smashed straight into the chest of Henry Cavill.
Was it literally his chest as well?
Yeah. And then instead of saying, "Oh, sorry, Henry," or "Mr. Cavill," I went, "Sorry, Superman." And the look on his face was like, "You're a fucking moron."
I would have been the same.
I know.
I would have been exactly the same.
And I just hung my head in shame as soon as I did that.
It would have felt like meeting Superman, especially bumping into his chest.
Yeah, it was like, just literally was like, he's got such a massive chest as well, and I whacked into it, and it was like a flipping wall, and I was like, whoa.
Oh, that's so good.
But I'm not good when I meet celebrities. I'm not at all. Like, I completely like, I don't say I fanboy over them, but I kind of find it hard to relate or know what to say. They're just human beings at the end of the day, but it's sometimes quite hard to know how to react to them.
You tend to meet them in circumstances where you aren't exactly there as a fan.
So you can't. Yeah.
You struggling to kind of relate to them the way you know them, as kind of like, you know, just icons of fan culture, and also trying to relate to them as kind of not like equals, really, because you're in the same business. Obviously,
yeah, I guess so.
It's not equals because, you know, they're incredibly different worlds, I guess. But still, there's that still kind of same wavelength.
Yeah.
If I'm making sense, I'm not trying to downplay you.
No, it's fine. I mean, I won my award for a stupid Ghostbusters remake made out of cardboard and string. So, but it was funny though, like staying at that party all night, and the last person on the dance floor was Henry Cavill, and he was completely fucking mullered. Watching Superman drunkenly dance is something I'll never ever get out of my head.
Oh, I want to hang out with Henry Cavill.
Like, I wish I had the bollocks just to get my camera phone out and be like, yeah. But you can't, you just get called out for it straight away. So, have you been watching anything this week?
Oh, what did I watch this week? I watched Babe, frankly. I think that's all. I can't remember.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
It's amazing. It's perfect. It's frankly a perfect film. I mean, what's wrong with that film in any way?
Nothing is wrong with that film.
No, it broke me. It absolutely broke me. Actually, I loved it.
It's a great film because, a film about a pig wanting to be something else speaks so much more broadly than what it actually is. Do you know what I mean? It's about, totally. You can be anything you want to be. You've got the duck in it who wants to be a rooster.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a charming little film.
And I was blown away by James Cromwell. I just thought his performance was. It makes the film wouldn't work if he wasn't so committed to the role, even though he's got very minimal lines. Like he kind of delivers all of them with a kind of, a cutthroat sincerity, yeah. And it I absolutely worked for me. I just remembered Babe as this funny little film from when I was a child, and then watching it again, I was like, oh my, this really works. This is a great film. Tell you what, it's better than Braveheart. Should have won the fucking Oscar.
Agreed. Wasn't that shot in Australia? If I remember,
it was.
Yeah.
Because it's George Miller.
Babe's a book, isn't it? Was it a book?
Mm.
Yeah.
The Sheep Pig. I did read it when I was young.
But I've never seen the sequel. Apparently, that's batshit crazy. But
I've heard it's great. I'm going to watch it next because I'm watching along with Blank Check podcast, obviously, and they're doing George Miller. So the next one is a Pig in the
surprisingly,
City.
his filmography is not that.
It's tiny.
It's not as big as you'd think.
I'm not. A bit heresy. I'm not a massive fan. There's nothing against. Like, Fury Road is one of the best films ever made. No question. No question, absolutely no question. And his career built up to making this just kick-ass fucking crazy film. But stuff for the lead.
And how old was he? Like 75 when he made that film?
I don't know.
He was definitely in his 70s.
That many films, does he? And he said it was a fever dream that he had on a flight from Australia or something, and he just decided to go back to Mad Max, and it just looks amazing. And it's bases like all of the Mad Max films are basically the same film made again and again and again until like he perfected it, really.
Yeah.
And
I mean, was this one meant to have Mad Mel in it, or?
I don't think so. I don't think he ever.
No.
I can imagine George Miller just decided not to go there. It doesn't need him. It barely needs Max because everyone else in the film takes over. Really,
I always get the impression that Mad Max isn't like you say. It kind of starts again every film. Is like a new.
It's like Evil Dead 1 and 2. It's just they just kept on making the same film until he got it.
What did I watch? Oh, I watched the Beastie Boys Story. Have you seen that?
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah. What did you think?
It's interesting. I mean, well, first of all, I read the book, which came out about a year and a half ago. And that book, if you've seen it, could kill someone if you threw it at them. It's that big. And it's like, it's so scatterbrained. It's brilliant. I mean, it starts off at how they formed and all that. But every other chapter interspersed. It was Mike Diamond and Adra.
Okay.
But it's got chapters interspersed throughout of it that are written by celebrities or people who they grew up with in New York with them and stuff like that in the 70s and the 80s. And they'll talk about the cultures that kind of were going on at the time. And there's one chapter about mixtapes and how to look after your tapes if they get broken, which are all things that we had to do, trading tapes with friends and stuff like that. And the art of making a mixtape.
My school rucksack used to be full of cassettes.
Yeah,
I always remember
exactly. And then there's like another chapter which is just about how to make the perfect New York bagel and stuff like that, which I'm going to actually try and attempt to make one day. But
Yeah.
so the
I'm up for
the
a Beastie Boy
documentary
bagel.
is
A BBB.
essentially a condensed version of that book, and so there's a lot of the minutiae that's lost and stuff like that. Which, but it's definitely like a massive love letter to MCA, you know, who obviously
Yeah.
passed away
Yeah.
about 6, 7, 8 years ago now.
God, was it longer?
But the presentation's really weird because it's like a PowerPoint presentation. And I mean, if there's anybody I'm going to watch do a PowerPoint presentation, it's going to be the Beastie Boys. But it's obviously scripted because at several points in the documentary, you see the cue cards, like the video teleprompter, and they're reading from it. Because they toured it, you see. So they did a few shows in London and stuff like that. And I really wanted to go, but
Why didn't I
can't
know
remember
this?
why. Yeah. And Spike Jonze was kind of in charge of like the projections and stuff like that in the background and stuff like that. So he was kind of directing it from behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'm quite sold on the format of it. But at some points I did like it, some points I didn't like it. But it's still really interesting to hear all the stories about, you know, how they produce certain albums, you know, how they met and things like that. And like the one thing that really struck me was like it showed pictures of them like from back in like 82, you know, or 81, way before we were even born. Yeah. And they look so cool on stage as 16-year-olds and like what they're wearing and stuff like that. And you think, well, if I was to wear that now, I wouldn't stand out and I'd look cool still. And then I look back at pictures of when I was 16 in bands and I look like a complete idiot with my big, huge jeans and massive trainers on and stuff like that. And I'm like, but I just think there's something about New York in like the late 70s, 80s that was just, even though it was dirty and grimy, it was cool because
it was
all
cool,
this culture came from it. Do you know what I mean? Hip hop, punk, and all this kind of stuff.
These areas that always these interesting melting pots always tend to kind of produce stuff like that. And New York is one of the best, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, because I mean, you know, they started off as punks, but they kind of started to get into jazz and hip hop and stuff like that. And then they just they put it all together in this blender and just became this kind of crazy fusion band. And like when they actually came out and became popular, they were taking the piss out of like frat culture and stuff like that. You know,
they were.
Fight for your right to party. But then they said they slowly started to become those people and they started to hate themselves. So that's why when they did Paul's Boutique and Check Your Head, they kind of reinvented themselves again because they wanted to be more pure and so like I'm going to just go into Beastie Boys stuff now. But like when they did Check Your Head, instead of like taking samples from other albums and stuff like that, they kind of created their own samples by actually playing their instruments again and learning how to play again properly.
Oh wow!
And so like from then on, all the samples they used and stuff was them playing their own instruments and stuff like that. And like Sabotage just was written in the space of like you know, an hour of them just jamming, just
way.
You know, that kind of changed their career again. And
Sabotage is one of those songs, if it comes on randomly when I'm listening to music, it's always kind of sounds like I'm hearing it for the first time. It's always a little bit kind of, wow, this exists. It has such energy to it. It's
just pure anarchy for me, that song. It's just, that riff is wicked. Did you ever see the short film that Adam Yauch directed, like, just before he died? And it's kind of like, it's almost like they purposely designed this. So their big break was Fight for Your Right to Party. And then he made this film, which was called Fight for Your Right Revisited. And it had Seth Rogen, Elijah Wood, and who's the guy from Eastbound and Down?
Danny McBride.
And they play the Beastie Boys, and it's about them leaving the party in the apartment that they're kind of like trashing.
Oh no, I have seen this. I have.
And it's almost like he ended his career by finishing off something at the beginning. It had, I don't know, it just had this kind of nice little arc to it. And
nice bookmark.
But yeah, it's a really great little short film. If you haven't seen it, it's on the internet anyway, so you can check it out.
I'm sure I've seen it on YouTube. I'm sure I have. I'll check it out again, actually. Oh, I need to watch that. Actually, I need to watch that documentary. I'll try and find it.
I'll send you it somehow by magic.
I carry a pigeon, obviously.
Carry a pigeon. I heard, a little birdie told me you rewatched Rise of Skywalker.
Oh,
And that little birdie was you.
I did tell you that. I hated it more this time.
And I hated it more the second time.
It's so hard to get through. It's so boring.
I got so tight. You know the bit where she there's that giant snake in the ground.
Yeah.
She kind of force heals. I kind of found it so hard to stay awake, and I kept nodding off during that scene, and I kept waking up during that scene, and I was like, "How long is this scene?" Like, I don't know why.
It's gonna be one of those. We talk about this now and again. We should have even made a podcast about it. It's one of these films where it seems so obvious the stuff they didn't do, and you almost can't stop going over it in your head about why did they make that choice? And once they made that choice and went down that path, you can see all the problems that led to that as well. The prequels were like this, and that's why people will talk about the prequels forever. But as soon as they decided Palpatine was in it, and as soon as they decided they weren't going to just let Leia die off screen, it just meant that plot was doomed, and they had nothing else to do with it, and they were just hampered by those decisions throughout the whole thing. And I
think me and you are in a different boat because we actually like The Last Jedi.
I think people who don't like The Last Jedi are incorrect humans.
Agreed. But I think it gave a real interesting springboard for what Rise of Skywalker could have been, or whatever the title would have been of that film.
It sets everything.
And I just think they didn't take the baton from that film.
No, it doesn't.
It's kind of like they took it and then just fell over straight away.
Yeah. They absolutely do not take
ran
anything.
the other way. They ran back to the start.
Whereas Last Jedi takes the baton from every single point of Force Awakens.
Yeah.
It doesn't change anything from what they're doing. It takes the baton and runs with it, and it feels like an actual sequel, whereas this doesn't feel like a sequel at all. It just felt like a weird standalone film that doesn't connect to anything. Even the characters didn't feel like the characters you've been watching for 2 films.
The one thing that baffled me was how people complained that Luke Skywalker became this kind of hermit and blah-de-blah-de-blah. And I was J.J. Abrams
Force
set it up.
Awakens, yeah.
Where else is he? Why else is he on an island on his own? You've got to come up with a reason why he's on his own.
They can't take that back, and that's what I love about Force Awakens, is the fact that Force Awakens is a film about teaching Luke Skywalker that Star Wars is really important again. And and
I don't think people got that.
And that really works for me as an audience member, because I'm not a massive Star Wars person, but I felt the kind of magic again while watching it, and by the end of that film where he does that force projection, I just think it's one of the most magical things in Star Wars. I think it's absolutely wonderful.
Well, I think people just latched onto the bit where he goes, it's time for the Jedi to end. And then they just stopped listening to the rest of the film then. And they went, nope, that's not Luke Skywalker. I'm like, well, watch it. And you kind of realise that he kind of...
By the end of it, he's basically a fan going, yep, Star Wars is really cool. I really like it. Yeah. I'm all in.
And I just think people wanted to see a 60-year-old Mark Hamill backflipping around the place with his lightsaber. I'm like, no one wants to see that. And I think the way they did it was perfect. But
I think it's perfect. The scene, it's beautiful. The scene that he's how angry Kylo Ren is of him and how scared Kylo Ren is of him just works for me so well. This little scene with Leia is beautiful, and I'm really glad they actually managed to shoot it. And then the last scene of him just seeing kind of two sons. It's not really and passing away is a perfect kind of thing for Luke's kind of physical end. And then he comes back in the shitty sequel with the worst scene ever.
It's a shame because his last line in The Last Jedi is "See you around, kid," and you think, "Oh, great, he's going to haunt him now, and he's going to kind of be on his shoulder the whole time." Not once, and you think that's such a wasted opportunity.
It is.
And for some reason, Mark Hamill's head looked massive. Don't you think his fake hair and his fake beard look ridiculous?
He's terrible.
And I felt bad for him.
I do as well.
It's not his fault, though. I don't think.
No, I won't blame him. He's just bad in it.
He was on green screen. I bet you he wasn't acting with Daisy Ridley.
No.
And
I bet they weren't on the island. I bet the wig looked terrible.
Regardless of whether you think he's right or wrong with how you think Luke Skywalker should go, he's a massive fan of Star Wars in general himself, anyway, and of his own character. And I think he probably just felt, I don't think he agreed with The Last Jedi, but if you watch the making of it, you see him come around and kind of appreciate the story that was created for him, you know.
Yeah.
And he probably just read the script of Rise of Skywalker and was like, well, I've got like 3 lines.
Yeah, I've got 3 lines when I do something nonsensical and say something nonsensical. It's stupid. It has no connection to Luke. I can't get into it. I get so
one of my biggest gripe with that film as well. You know, when she has that big, she goes to that island just to kind of say, nope, I'm not being a Jedi anymore, and then becomes a Jedi like about 5 seconds afterwards. Like, if you watch Return of the Jedi, there's not one moment in that Luke's like, nah, I don't think I want to do this anymore. Like, in the 3rd film, he's like, right, I'm on a mission now, and I'm going to see this through to the end.
In a screenwriting terms, I'm really not a fan of the fake reject. What do they call it? The like reject the call. But I'm really not a fan of the fake reject the call. Like, either it's a real screenwriting moment that needs to be in it, or don't do it. Because if I'm 3/4 into a film and you're pretending that she's not going to save the day, fuck off. I know she's going to save the day. What's this point? What's the point of this? It's not going to be. You're not going to learn anything from the 5-minute scene you're going to have when she changes her mind again. And I think that is one of those classic moments, really.
Yeah, it's just a shame, massive wasted opportunity,
and huge waste of Kylo Ren as well. That's why I hate it.
Yeah, agreed. Like, he has no lines at the end of that film.
He has no lines at the start of that film. He has like 4 film lines in that film. And
wait, he's such a good actor as well.
I know. Oh, Adam Driver is just of the generational talent, I think. Like, and he's just wasted. I mean, and I love seeing him play the kind of Han Solo-ness of it all, because he can do that. He's Adam Driver, but he's wasted. He could have just had such force and such power in that film if they just let him be the kind of the enemy, you know, the villain that his arc was building towards. Even if you have redemption, just let him be the actual villain, and not. He just gets put into like this status hold at the start of the film where he's kind of a puppet again to another wrinkly man. It's just pointless.
Oh well, I'll tell you what else I watched. I watched all 4 Jaws films.
Oh God!
I mean, there's nothing you can say about Jaws 1 that's never been said before. It's perfect. Do you know what I mean? I don't think you just can't get better than it. No. Jaws 2 is incredibly boring.
And actually, just saying about Jaws 1, it's quite funny that it always comes up in political debates and stuff like that. The Jaws mayor is one of those kind of political villains. That he's been evoked a lot at the moment with the COVID stuff about, because the Jaws mayor refuses to shut the beaches even though people are dying of shark attacks, and he refused to shut the beach because he's going to harm the economy of the beach, which is a little bit of analogous to kind of what's going on at the moment.
But he does wear a dapper suit though. That
suit,
anchor
I think it's
suit
one of the best.
Is amazing.
If we had to do a list of best suits in films, I think that anchor suit might be number 1.
That's in there. Definitely in the top 10 is also the Dumb and Dumber suits.
Yeah.
Come back in a few weeks. We'll do our top 10 suits in films.
Surely something from Fifth Element must be in it.
Sure, yeah, it must be. Jaws 2 is very boring. Like, nothing happens really in that film.
It is. It's dull.
And I'm going to admit, like, halfway through Jaws 3, my attention started to really wane, because Jaws 3 is not very good either.
I love watching Jaws 3 for the comping of the 3D elements, and they kind of like float in the middle of the screen with huge lines around them.
I tell you what, I think Jurassic World is basically a remake of Jaws 3. It just feels like Jaws, because it's like
because it's about SeaWorld, isn't it? And they reopen.
And then Dennis Quaid plays the son of Chief Brody.
Yeah.
And the last time we saw him, he was about 10 years old, and now he's a 30-year-old man in this film. Dennis Quaid does not remember filming Jaws 3. Apparently he was on coke the whole time. But yeah, Jaws 4 is it's not a good film, but it's definitely more entertaining. At least it tries to do something a bit different.
I kind of love Jaws 4. I've got a really big soft spot for Jaws 4. That's the one famously that Michael Caine said that it was his. Did he say it was his beach house film or something?
Well, he said I've never seen the film, but I've seen the glorious mansion it built in Hawaii or something like that.
Yeah. I always remember because it's got the banana boat scene, and I always remember the banana boat scene for some reason.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my review of the Jaws films.
What a weird... It's so weird that Jaws is a franchise. I think we should talk about that more often as a warning to Hollywood. Like, for some reason you decided that Jaws is a franchise.
I'm surprised it hasn't come back, but to be fair, there's so many, like, shark-inspired movies these days. I mean, you've got...
Well, that's what they stopped. They stopped making Jaws film. They just started making kind of sea horror films, which are basically just new Jaws films.
Well, you've got the piranha movies, the alligator films, and you've got like Lake Placid and Deep Blue Sea, Meg, and then you've got all the cheap ones like Shark Attack 1 to 100 and Sharknado,
all
and
the
then
Sharknadoes,
multi-headed shark. There's one where the shark's got like 3 heads.
Yeah, octopus shark, and I watched that Crawl, the crocodile
I saw that
film.
with the alligator.
The alligator film, yeah. It's so boring.
It's
so
ridiculous. Spoilers. That dad character, is he the guy from Dexter? Isn't he like one of the cops from Dexter? But anyway, he gets his arm ripped off in one scene, like bitten off. And he's like, it's just a flesh wound.
My favourite bit is when she traps the alligator in the shower. By that point, I was laughing so hard.
Would a town flood like that? Or was it a dam collapse? I can't even remember what happens, but I just remember the house gets covered in water, like very quickly. Is
it just a hurricane and she goes to rescue her dad and her dad refuses to leave the house and they get trapped under the house?
Yeah, she hears his mobile phone, so she crawls in the crawl space underneath the house, which is not even like a cellar, it's just like it is a crawl space.
Like, people have crawl spaces,
yeah, and then just so happens to find an alligator down there, and the alligator's mauled a dad or something.
Well, the alligator chases them up the house as the water rises, which is as ridiculous as that sounds. But it's not fun. It's not fun enough. That's what I didn't like about it.
Yeah. So, Liam, what year are we talking about today?
I think we're up to 1996, actually.
I don't think so. Isn't it 1997?
I think we're up to 1997.
Yes.
I haven't got it written down.
We're going to talk about Suburbia.
No, we're fucking not. Yeah, so 97. I mean, for 97 for you, what's the film for 97 for you that you think about?
Batman and Robin.
Really?
No. I'm trying to think. LA Confidential was one of my favourites from that year, I think.
Okay.
I'm just having a quick little look through films that came out that year.
Well, I say that I always think of Mimic at first.
Okay.
The first Hollywood Del Toro film, isn't it?
Yeah. Have you ever seen the director's cut of that?
I have, yeah.
Any good?
I love it. I think that film really holds up. It's not perfect, but we're talking about silly horror films, and he's got a way of shooting these kind of silly like monster films. And like going back now, knowing what you know about Del Toro, there is a lot of kind of sympathetic kind of treatment of the monsters, more than you would expect from that kind of film. I think it's worth revisiting.
It has one of the most Del Toro characters in it, and that's the little kid who plays the spoons. Like talks with the spoons.
Yes, I forgot about him.
I'll tell you one film I loved from that year, and that was The Ice Storm. That was a really good film.
Are you on to my Ang Lee pick? Yes.
Sorry.
I love The Ice Storm. It's brilliant. It's so... No one talks about this film, and it's perfect. And Tobey Maguire's in it. And he's not Superman. Superman? Spider-Man.
What else came out later? Chasing Amy.
Oh, was that 97?
Yeah, and Princess Mononoke.
I was going to say that's my favourite film of the year, Princess Mononoke.
Yeah, that is It's just a fantastic film.
It is. There's three kind of Miyazaki films that are almost equal for me, and it's Princess Mononoke, Kiki's Delivery Service, and Spirited Away are just, for me, three just perfect films that I always go back and forth about which one's my favourite, but I think Mononoke is. I'm not sure. Kiki's might be my most watched, but and Spirited Away is a perfect film, so I don't know. But I love Princess Mononoke. It's my favourite film of the year. And
I think Princess Mononoke is mine. Just some of the imagery and the creature designs in that are just
the creature
fantastic.
designs are wonderful. The action is wonderful, and the fact it's all hand animated. Well, I think they probably use computers to assist, but just the look of it and the feel of it just is. First time I ever watched it, I'll always remember that it didn't feel like anything I'd ever watched before, because it just felt so detailed and real, but it was animation.
I know that Miramax distributed that in America, and apparently Miyazaki or something, they sent the film or something like that, or a letter along with a knife, and it said no cuts. Oh, was it like a samurai sword or something like that, and it said no cuts?
Yeah, and it was I can't remember which one it was. Laputa, maybe. And they fucked around with it so much that it almost damaged their kind of distribution deal. Oh, really?
Well, I mean, he's very like the way Miyazaki makes films and his like thoughts about making filmmaking are very kind of like, because doesn't he kind of like believe that children should only see one film a year and things like that, and they should be his films?
Yeah. Well, he wouldn't even let his films be on streaming until this year. Then no one believed it would ever happen, and out of nowhere they got this streaming deal. HBO got it, and now it's on Netflix in Europe. But he basically thought that films shouldn't be that accessible, and they shouldn't just be throwaway things that you just put on when you're lounging around. They should be like treated like proper kind of artifacts, and taken out of their case and put into the film whenever you need to watch them, kind of thing.
Well, that's just an artist talking, though, isn't it? I mean, wasn't he kind of upset with his son over his, what is it, Tales from Earthsea film?
Tales from Earthsea, properly. There's a wonderful documentary on him, actually. If you want, you should watch it. So the name's gone out of my head, but it's worth watching.
I've seen it.
But he's a fascinating human, and apparently he's making a new film. The Man Who Can't Retire.
He's definitely not retired now.
Yeah. Well, The Wind Rises is probably the most perfect film ever for the last ever film on someone.
Yeah.
So it's a shame if he does make another one. But, not everything has to be poetic. I'm sure if he makes another film, it would be as wonderful as all his other films. He never made a bad film, so...
I'm surprised you haven't spoken about The Fifth Element yet. That's one of your
favorites. I already feel like I mentioned it like too many times, but I love The Fifth Element.
You can mention
I absolutely love it. I can't believe how much of a failure it was when it came out, and I never felt it was a failure. I always felt like it was a great film, and it's over the years, people have really taken to it and really adopted it now.
Well, I just like that John Paul Gaultier designed all the costumes in it and stuff like that, so that's why everything looks a bit crazy and a bit, I don't know. And then the biggest film ever. Yeah. And then the biggest film ever came out that year as well, didn't it? Titanic.
Yeah.
Just dominated everything. I don't understand why that film of all just kind of captivated everybody and just kind of...
No, it's weird actually. That's true. I never thought about that. I went to see it at the cinema when it came out. I think I saw it twice. I think I told myself I didn't like it. I think I didn't want to like it because it was so popular.
It's not a bad film by any stretch of the imagination.
I rewatched it a few years ago, and actually I was like, oh, this really works. I can see why everyone fell in love with it. It does. It's got everything in it. And in terms of filmmaking, it's perfect. The way James Cameron can bookend that kind of, he shows you what the disaster is going to be at the start, so you don't worry about it. So you just get involved in the romantic storyline. It's genius, really. So it is. I know a lot of people like to be kind of disparaging of it, but Titanic is pretty perfect as a film.
It's crazy though. You'd think a guy like that would have made more films, but his filmography is very small. It's like two Terminators, Alien, True Lies, Titanic, and Avatar, and Piranha 2.
Yeah.
And I don't think he even finished filming that himself, did he?
Oh, really? I don't know.
Yeah, so it's a very small. And The Abyss as well, obviously.
And The Abyss, yeah.
But for a guy that's been in the biz
films.
Nearly 40 years, he hasn't made as many films as you think he would have done. I mean, isn't he filming all of his Avatars back to back? So there's going to be 4 coming out.
Sure. Who knows? I didn't even like Avatar, so the idea that there's going to be 5 of them or something is baffling to me. But I don't know. Sure, James, go do what you do.
it's weird for a film that made so much money. It has, like, if you go to a Comic-Con, you don't see people dressed up as like Navi and stuff like that, and
it's made no cultural impact at all.
Yeah.
Like they opened that massive park in was it Florida in the Disney World, the Avatar section and stuff, and it's just no one talks about Avatar. Why is this? When does this exist?
Apparently, it's meant to be amazing. The animatronics are meant to be fantastic in it, but
sure, I don't know. Yeah, great. Love me an animatronic. I think the last animatronic I ever saw was a dinosaur thing. Was it called Walking with Dinosaurs?
But there's that, or Dinosaurs Alive when we were a kid.
Maybe it's Dinosaurs Alive I'm thinking of. And that's a weird tangent that I won't go into. I'd say a couple of more films from this year before we move on is, I think Men in Black is perfect film.
I watched that. I somehow ended up watching that twice a few weeks ago, just because it was on telly and it was like on again. And I just sat through it again it's just, it's so good. It's
brilliant. I don't know how it works so well. I think it's baffling, really. I don't think they know how it works so well because they never got it again. But
what's his name? The villain, Vincent D'Onofrio. He is good in that film. Yeah,
one of the best performances ever. Like,
he looks uncomfortable walking around in his own skin. It's incredible.
He literally looks like an insect in a human costume. Yeah. And he sounds like it, and I don't understand how he does it with just a physical performance. Like, it's incredible.
Give me sugar. Water.
I love it. He's great. He's great in that film. I don't understand how he didn't get all the kind of accolades as well at the time. But yeah, that makes it work. And Will Smith is on top of his game. Tommy Lee Jones gets it as well, and he's engaged in it and stuff. So that film really does work. And last one I was going to just mention is Contact. I think is a great film, and I just wanted to mention it because that shot always messes me up. I think we talked about it a few weeks ago when she's running up the stairs and it goes into the mirror.
Oh yeah.
And I watch it over and over again, and I have no idea how they filmed it. I haven't got a clue how they did that shot, and I always think about that.
I remember watching it not so long ago, that shot, and then I came to a conclusion of how they did it, my own idea of how they did it, and I've totally forgotten my conclusion. But I like that film. It's got a lot of similarities with Interstellar, hasn't it? If I remember.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I accept that. I like Contact. I liked it at the time.
Oh, I liked it as well.
So.
That's the one that's got.
Is
Jake
it only similar because they've both got
and...
Matthew McConaughey in it?
That is true. He's a priest though, isn't he? In Contact.
Yeah. I have to say, Interstellar is a film that I didn't like at all, and you managed to keep selling me on it, and now I really like it.
I love it.
You keep kind of like poking and.
Going back to the Empire Awards that I alluded to earlier, that was the year that he won Best Film for Interstellar at the Empire Awards, and he was on the table behind me. And I tried really hard to speak to him, even though I wouldn't know what to say to him, but I spoke to his wife. And I was like, I had this whole speech, and I said it to her, and she went, thanks, and then just turned around and walked away. And I was like, oh.
Can you pass this on to Chris, please?
Yeah, because she's his producer.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Mr. Nolan. Actually, Mr. Nolan is a good segue into what we're doing this week. So, this week we're covering Satoshi Kon's first film, Perfect Blue.
はい、5秒前。4、3、2。
So the reason I kind of ankled it with Nolan is because Satoshi Kon's films. I guess we'll talk a lot about Satoshi Kon. I said to Ollie before going into this that I'm a little bit intimidated by covering him because I think he's a bit of a luminary, really, in Japanese animation and filmmaking, really. But there's a direct line you can draw from Satoshi Kon's work to Christopher Nolan and straight to Inception. Satoshi Kon's final film, Paprika, is a film about how there's a machine that lets therapists go into people's dreams, is stolen, and then starts getting used for crimes. And that film and imageries in that film are absolutely replicated in Inception, to the point that Inception is accused, and people are very angry about how it's actually a flat rip-off of Paprika. I don't believe that, but there's no way it's not influenced by it. And I think they were a little bit underhanded in the fact that they were kind of a bit denial about how it had nothing to do with Paprika, but it's very similar. There's even like stuff like when they touch mirrors and they crash and stuff like that is the exact images and that kind of folding and dreamscape and stuff. And
there is also a comic book of DuckTales from like the late 80s or 90s where they go in Scrooge McDuck's brain to get the passcode for his safe. So it's not like an idea that's never been done before. Do you know what I mean? But,
no. Well, I think
he did. But but both filmmakers did it incredibly well.
Yeah, I was just I love Inception. I'm not actually shitting on Inception at all. I think for me it's one of the most perfect films ever made. That hallway fight scene will always for me be something that I watched, and I always have that feeling of just how the hell am I watching this, and how the hell this is happening on screen. I mean, but that hallway fight scene is kind of in Paprika as well. But I'm just saying, like, I think the marketing of Inception was very much about how unique it is, and I think the kind of blowback, the fan blowback, was about the fact, no, this isn't that unique. You're just doing it really well. Like, there is stuff that did this before. Well, you don't need to pretend everything's new.
The selling point for me for Inception was that I thought it was unique, because other films have gone into dreams, like The Cell and stuff like that have done it, like back in the 90s. But with Inception, what they did was this different layers of dream state, and then that time slowed down, and there's that song, you know, that's the song they used, is the bam, 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 and that slows down every time to the speed, and I thought that was ingenious. Smart. But anyway, we're not talking about that.
We're not talking about Inception, but
he also did a comic book called Opus. Did you ever hear about that?
Yeah,
one?
Sure. Yeah,
and that was about a character who gets sucked into his own comic book. So he's definitely got like this kind of like, he likes to do reality bending kind of.
He always did. He did that comic book with Kashuhiro Otomo. I'm going to apologise for my pronunciation, but he's the guy who made Akira and Steam Boy. He came up as an artist working for him. He did comic books like that, which are about this kind of meta manga in a manga kind of stories, and then he started getting films, and this was his first film, Perfect Blue, which is a film about kind of how that mixing of dreams and kind of reality, but also kind of fiction blur into one story.
Yeah.
Before
incredibly
we go on
seamlessly at some points as well.
Absolutely
so
seamlessly.
Well
Yeah. We should touch on Satoshi a little bit before going into film, really, because he is a luminary in kind of Japanese animation, and he unfortunately died when he was 46, 10 years ago, from pancreatic cancer. He actually was a big surprise because he hid his illness from the public. I think he was given 6 months to live, I think.
Yeah.
And he just kind of hid away. He actually wrote his own obituary, and it was published after he died. And you got a lot of people coming out talking about afterwards how he was so influential, because it's not about he's got about, I think it's 4 films. So he got Perfect Blue. He did a film called Millennium Actress, which is kind of about the golden age of Japanese film. Tokyo Godfathers, which is an absolute, like, for me, it's one of my favourite films.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And you know, people always talk about your favourite Christmas film. That is my favourite Christmas film. And like, screw Die Hard. Tokyo Godfathers.
I was going to say, not Die Hard.
No. But that's about 300.
Where do you stand on that, by the way? I need to ask you that. Is Die Hard a Christmas film?
It's a film set at Christmas.
Yeah, it's not a Christmas film. Next, carry on.
It was released in July.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's on Christmas. 3 homeless people are trying to return a baby. It's his most straightforward film, but it's full of heart, and it's about identity. All his films are about this kind of about identity and how you are perceived and how you kind of perceive yourself. Paranoid Agent was his Twin Peaks, is the best way I can put it, where he then did a TV show about one character called Little Slugger who terrorizes a town. And then he finished it off with Paprika, which we talked about, the machine that lets like therapists enter dreams. So all these films have this mix of kind of about like dreamscape and reality and identity and how that builds up. And really, straight away, he kind of, because of this film, We're Doing Perfect Blue, it solidified him as an auteur almost straight away, because he took this book and didn't like the original screenplay and started just changing it to the way he suited him. He made it very clear that he was, in charge of this process.
Yeah, because I was gonna. So, how different was the book to the film of this? Do you know?
I don't really know. I don't know. I can't imagine. Really, I should read it.
It was also adapted into another film in 2002, like a live action. I found it. I'm talking about Perfect Blue. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I found it on YouTube, but I didn't really properly watch it.
I might try and watch that then. I would say as well, Kon as well. He was he worked really hard to improve labour conditions in the anime industry. He was like a founding member of the I think they're called the Japanese Animation Creators Association, JACA, who advocate for like better pay and working conditions for animators, because the job of being an animator is so hard. And
yes, I know.
he also, yeah, sure. And he basically encouraged his animators to change their viewing habits to not watch animation. So like he would do like live action showings of films at his studios. He'd show stuff like Jaws, like we talked about, Wonderful Life, Tokyo Story. He'd get them to try and watch kind of actual classic films and put that into their animation. Well,
yeah, you only have to watch this and to see that like people's movements aren't over exaggerated or like over the top. It's very kind of either minimalistic. Like if a lot of the animation is either on 2s or 3s. There is definitely some.
Explain that a bit.
All right, so 2s is when animation it's like 12 frames a second. So it's every so a normal animation second or a normal film second is 24 frames a second. But to save time or for stylistic reasons, you can go down to 12 frames a second, or you can go down to 9. I mean, if you look at Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, like shots in that, they completely messed around with that. Some characters will be 24 frames a second, some people will be 12, some people will be 9, all in the same shot. So,
wow.
But yeah, I think there's definitely some rotoscope going on in this as well. Like,
oh really?
There's an amazing. Sorry to kind of jump ahead, but there's an amazing like scene where the photographer is like brutally murdered. Like that is.
Oh, that scene.
But it was so realistic and brutal. It looked rotoscope. Like the motion was like perfect. So I have a feeling that was rotoscope, which I've got nothing against that because I've used rotoscopes. I think it's a great tool. A lot of animators look down on rotoscope because they think it's cheating, but
I think
it's whatever works.
I think it's interesting. I think you can be, we'll go into the plot, but I think you can be fooled by this film into thinking, why would you make this animated? And I think it's something, I don't know. Japanese animation gets shit on a lot, but I loved how adult this was. And but once you start getting into the reality blurring stuff, you realise why this has to be an animation film, and it works so well as an animated film, I think.
I agree, but the one thing I was going to say is like, unlike the rest of the world, in Japan, like animation is just seen as another tool to make a film. It doesn't matter if it's live action; it's just another tool. Whereas in the West, like in America or UK or wherever, it's seen as like it's either for kids or for geeks. It's to sell. It's to have genre stories or for cute characters or weird. Yeah. It's not for dramas or things like that. And whereas
I'm glad you mentioned Into the Spider-Verse, actually, because I was thinking of Into the Spider-Verse when I was watching this, because I was trying to think of an American animated film that is as close to a kind of adult story like this. And Spider-Verse was the only one I could really think of that isn't, you know, it is a kind of childish film, but it isn't a complete just kids film. Well, I would say as well, just before we move on to the film, that one of his big influences was, one of the big filmmakers that was influenced by Satoshi Kon was Darren Aronofsky. And you can see that in Black Swan especially, and Black Swan is kind of basically this film.
Oh yeah, I've got this in my notes. He even wrote he wrote like an obituary for him, didn't he?
He wrote a eulogy. Yeah, he did. Yeah,
the eulogy. Sorry.
But even there's a shot in Requiem for a Dream, which is a shot-to-shot homage from a scene from this film. I believe it's the staircase chase. I think.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Like the motion and animation of that is fantastic, and you can see that into the Spider-Verse with all the lines, because like Spider-Verse is obviously CGI. But there's a lot of hand-drawn elements, so they like draw like movement lines and things like that, just to kind of give it a bit more of a kinetic energy. Which is like that scene, the hallway scene, the staircase scene, is very different to a lot of the other scenes in the film because it's quite static in a lot of it. So like a lot of the backgrounds are quite static, or the shots are quite static. But that was like really quite kinetic, I thought. Yeah, I liked how it opened though with like the Power Rangers.
I loved that. When it opened, I kind of thought I had to check if I was actually watching the film yet, or if it wasn't a trailer for something.
So, should we get into the plot and kind of explain what it's about?
Yeah. So it's about this character Mima, who is a lead singer in a J-pop girl group called Cham, Cham. I think I got that right. And it opens up with her performing at it looks like a convention rather than a gig.
Well, that's what I was thinking, because it's like a festival or an all-dayer, because obviously they have the Power Ranger thing at the beginning, like a stage show. But they might do things different in Japan. I don't know.
That's what I was thinking, because I was wondering, people were turning up with stuff to sign, and dressed up as them and stuff. And I guess I don't really understand the kind of idol world in Japan. I know it's a big thing, and I wonder if it was some sort of like they have these idol events that people turn up to try and meet them and things.
Well, I wonder if it's like because the J-pop is obviously quite youth orientated. Like maybe they just have like these kind of youth kind of events where they have like stage shows from like TV shows and pop bands and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know.
But it certainly was a way for me to get into it, and look at it and go, this is different. This isn't just a gig. Like they're showing her as a different kind of element in this celebrity world kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, she's performing a song, and you have this really creepy security guy who's like a fake security guy sitting at the front, kind of holding his palm out. So she's dancing in his palm.
Well, I've got that. It's almost like he's almost like immortalizing her, and like as his image in his palm of his hand, like that's where he sees her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like his toy and his little idol and stuff. It's really creepy. Really kind of straight away. It's really weird and really creepy.
Well, I mean, like a big thing in this film is like avatars, and like how people are, they have different sides to themselves. And like he obviously is obsessed with the avatar of her, not the real version. He doesn't know the real person, does he? He kind of just sees that version of her, the one that's on stage dancing and singing, and kind of
the way he's immortalized her. Yeah. I gotta say, I probably would have come to this, but I think this film is 97. It's way before internet culture, and this really does get that toxic fan internet culture down, like perfectly.
Do you know what it reminded me of? Do you remember the Bjork stalker?
Kinda.
And he tried to send a bomb to Bjork, and it got intercepted, but it was it was going to basically blow her up. It was like a package that would explode, and he created all these videos of himself, like how he was obsessed with her, and he started like shaving his hair and painting his face and doing all these crazy things. Whoa. And like even though that only came to light after this film came out, it just had a lot of similarities to it. It was quite bizarre.
Yeah, that is actually really, really weird.
But he kills himself in the end, like on videotape. He shoots himself. You can actually find it online if you want to watch it. It's quite bleak, but
I'm okay. No, I didn't know about that. I mean, I think I think Madonna has talked about this film in the fact that she related to it. I think she used some imagery from this film for a tour or something as well. So, which is incredible.
I'm guessing a lot of pop stars or film stars, like female, maybe like see themselves in this character because, especially like probably pop stars or film stars who are younger, and then when they start to get older, they're not exactly sure where to go on their career.
Yeah.
So they kind of go in this highly sexualized kind of way. So like Britney Spears or Miley Cyrus or whatever, and they kind of.
You have to break. Like that's what this film she's doing. She quits being an idol to become an actress, but she struggles to kind of break her image as like this perfect idol. So she starts taking these kind of more creepier jobs and more adult jobs and stuff to try and get her to be seen in a different way by the public, which I think is, as you say, a lot of pop stars do that to try and like break the mold. Really, a lot of actors do it as well, to kind of grow up. But
like Shia LaBeouf, for example.
Well, yeah, I was thinking of he's gone out of my head now. Who was I thinking of? Johnny Depp. When he did Crybaby and stuff. But so she's performing. She quits, and they've got a scene that I really liked here when it's showing her adjusting to life after being an idol, and she's just like shopping or just like in her room. And
I loved all that stuff in her apartment. It was like a good extended sequence of just her, like 5 minutes just in her apartment. I thought it was like the detail and like the richness in a room and of all the other items. It feels lived in. It's really
the richness of the supermarket. I thought that like the lettuce and things like that were really stood out to me. And it's cutting between that and her performing still, which I really liked. That it straight away it's not doing one like it's not doing one timeline. It's immediately just kind of breaking it up and showing different things at different times at the same time on screen, which kind of sets you up to be kind of ready for what the film goes into. So she's kind of she's kind of feeling just as isolated as an actor, and she ends up being shown a website which is like a blog of her life, which is written.
That made me laugh. Like explaining how to use the internet to someone. It's like explaining to my dad how to use the internet. It's brilliant.
But I liked it because she's been a pop idol for so long that she's useless. That's what I kind of liked about it. She doesn't know how to use things, and look after herself really. So she's there going like HTTP. But yeah,
I guess like 97 though, the internet would not have been really the thing it is now. It's not like.
No. I guess it was new. I always think of internet as 95 for some reason, but I don't know when.
Yeah, but 95 to 97 is not that.
It's a whole 2 years. Yeah, good point. Yeah, so she finds a blog which is her life, and it's written as her, and it's writing all the details about her life down. So it's someone watching her in the supermarket and
watching her get off the subway and stuff like that.
And this starts this kind of story of her kind of her mind kind of breaking into the fact that there's this idolized version of her that still exists out there, that is kind of like she's still a pop idol, and now her current version of herself where she's still feeling kind of isolated and awful as like an actress and trying to get on.
Yeah. I think it's worth noting she's got two agents who work for her.
Yeah.
So there's a male one who's he's kind of maybe pushing the acting side more so. And then there's the female one who wants her to kind of go back to being the pop star.
Being the pop idol again, yeah. Is it the male one that gets hit by the kind of letter bomb?
That's the thing that reminded me of the Bjork.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So she's kind of having no agency in her career, and they kind of talk her into doing quite seedy acting jobs. And the scene they do, I think, is still one of the most terrifying scenes I've ever watched in a film.
I've got that on my notes. It's. I just put yikes.
I know. It's absolutely traumatic. Like, not traumatic for no sake though. It's really Well, if I describe it, she takes this acting job where she plays a stripper, and the audience basically rapes her.
Yeah.
But the way this scene plays out is that she's clearly uncomfortable doing this acting job, and every time the camera yells cut, she's almost trapped in this.
They've got to stay in position, which is bizarre.
And she always feels trapped, like, in the middle of this rape, and she's having trouble seeing it as not reality. She's having trouble seeing it as an acting job. Even like when the guy leans down and whispers in her ear, like, "I'm really sorry" or something, and it makes it worse somehow.
Yeah, but I mean, I can't even imagine what that would be like to animate something like that. Like, filming it as well would be horrible, but animating it takes so much longer. It would just
yeah. I just thought it was terrifying, and that's kind of that's the point the film really changes at that point.
So the character in this TV show that she's playing, is that the same one? You know, she has that first line, and she's like,
sure. No,
I assume it's meant to be a carry on of that character. No, I think it's the same TV show. Isn't it?
Okay.
And the one that the writers murdered about, because he's kind of created this character for her where he's like sexualized her, and then he ends up murdering the
so people start dying who are responsible for her kind of, how you say it, her kind of, her image changing, and what the writer who starts being called Me Mania sees as kind of disparaging to the pop idol. And so they kill the writer of this series, and that's the guy with the screwdriver, isn't it, that you're on about?
Yeah, which has got like the horrific death scene.
Yeah.
And then there's the oh no, that's not that. No, that horrific death scene. That's the photographer.
Oh, it is the photographer.
So the writer is the guy in the lift, and then he gets his eyes like gouged out or whatever.
Yeah.
And then
and then later on,
who else is murdered? Anyone else, or is it just the two?
Well, fish are killed, and that upset me.
Oh yeah. But you see her dreaming that it's herself that's murdered.
Yeah, so at that point in the film,
So there's a photographer in the film that's kind of known to take CD pictures or convince the people in front of his camera to kind of go further than they would. And so
he really reminds me of that guy who photographed Miley Cyrus, who's got a
I
won't be able to put his name.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
He's got a proper kind of reputation for that.
Oh, apparently he's. Yeah, I've heard horrible things about that man.
Yeah, we talked about Miley Cyrus at work, so
yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Because you have the kind of stimulated rape scene that she clearly takes in as actual.
Did you say
trauma.
stimulated or simulated?
Simulated. I meant to be simulated. If I said stimulated, that's wrong. Simulated rape scene. And she really takes that on trauma. At that point, the film kind of splits. She goes back home. Her fish are killed, and she starts seeing her pop idol self as a physical being who it starts tormenting her about how her image has been tarnished, how she's ugly, how she's pathetic, like how she could have kept being a pop idol, which was the best thing, but you've taken this seedy path, and at that point you kind of have this weird play where you've got the Me Mania character, this very creepy guy that you've been seeing throughout the whole film, this pop idol version of Mima and the actual version of Mima, and they all start getting kind of put into one character.
Yeah, it all starts blending and like the TV show that she's doing starts blending into the reality as well, doesn't it?
She starts being unable to realise when she's filming something in the TV show or when it's actually her life. There's that great scene where she wakes up like twice in a row, and one seems to be reality, but the other one she's on set, and it blurs into that.
So the TV show that she's on, is it revealed that she's meant to be the killer on the TV show?
I think
and then that's kind of doubling into her dreams where she's seeing herself murdering these people. But the weird thing is,
you don't know they're filming the TV show, and they say she's got DID.
Yeah, but you see her murdering that photographer.
Yeah,
as the pizza delivery girl, or whatever.
Yeah,
But she sees it in her dreams before she even finds out about the murder.
Yeah,
which kind of goes. that I don't think this is a film that's meant to be like a puzzle that's meant to be solved. I don't think it's that kind of a film. It's like just meant to be experienced. It's like just one person's kind of psychosis, kind of.
I was saying the scene when she attacks with a screwdriver and it keeps cutting between him getting killed, the pornographic pictures being taken, and then her waking up and finding the bloody pizza delivery uniform, dreaming about it.
Yeah.
Is that at that point the film's just fucking, it's gone off, and it's quite fantastic actually.
So like, even though I just said this film isn't about a puzzle and is meant to be unlocked, so I wonder at what point does her, because it's revealed that her one of her agents is the one that's kind of
Rumi.
Is kind of becoming her, or like trying to live as her.
Yeah, it's like it's a black swan kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
She's had a psychotic break when she's believing that she is her, but her is like a good, like the pop idol version of her, and not this kind of tarnished idol that she sees. Like,
yeah, but it's not a film you can work out when she's there or not, because you see the avatar, the ideal version of her, like flying through the air or jumping on lampposts and things like that, things that you couldn't physically do in a real space or real world.
Yeah. It's impossible to know which parts of this film are really happening or not, really.
But then I guess like later on in the film, the guy who's obsessed with her doing the website, he actually does try to rape her, doesn't he?
Yeah, that scene is
yes.
God. That's because he attacks her in the strip club, doesn't he? So it echoes the rape scene from earlier in the film.
Yeah.
And the vulnerability in that scene was just palpable. It was almost a little too graphic for me, if I'm honest.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of nudity in this film.
Yeah, there is. Yeah,
like,
graphic's the wrong word, but it's very just emotive. Just very like, they don't shy away from it. That it's meant to be kind of traumatizing.
I mean, when they first show him in the film, like I didn't know if they were going to do a bit of like, because he looks, he's got like strange eyes, like his eyes are a bit far apart, or they look a bit glazed over, and his mouth's a bit mangled and stuff. So I was thinking, are they going to juxtapose this and make him like the Quasimodo, the hero kind of character or whatever? But no, he's just straight up villain. Like, do you know what I mean?
Straight up. Was he? I think he was, because I thought he was writing himself the emails from the pop idol version of Mima.
Okay. So is he actually getting emails then?
Yeah, I think it's Rumi who's writing to him.
Oh, so they're kind of working together almost, but not
almost,
not
manipulating
knowingly.
Him.
Yeah. That's what I reckon. Yeah,
that's what I reckon.
Yeah, they definitely do mention that, I think, around that point in the film, definitely.
Yeah. And
then so she then kills him, like she hits him with a hammer, doesn't she?
Whacks him with a hammer, yeah. And then when she goes back, though, it's almost like nothing ever happened there.
Yeah.
Which, again, you might not be sure it did happen or not. That's like...
Yeah, because the body's not there.
The body's not there. Everything's like because they're smashing down bits of scene and stuff like that, and it's all back up perfect.
Yeah.
So Mima's there, not like she's all her clothes are torn and everything like that, but like it's almost more traumatizing to her because it feels like she made it up as well.
Yeah. And then does her agent take her to her apartment, but it's not really her apartment. It's kind of made to look like her apartment.
Oh, right, yeah.
That's kind of what I got from it, because she looks out the window and it's not the same skyline that she normally sees. She sees the train and everything like that.
But it's also not her apartment, isn't it? It's her apartment from when she was a pop idol.
Yeah, so it's kind of got the pictures and stuff,
the old
like
posters and the old fish as well.
Are they even... Because the fish don't seem to be moving. They're floating, but they're not... They don't look like they're swimming around like normal fish like they did before. They look like they were static but posed, kind of. I don't know.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Yeah. Like it was all meant to be this like kind of a set almost.
Yeah, there's like a lot to unravel in this film, I think. It's...
A lot. Yeah, so then you see that her other manager and Me Mania are dead in the parking lot, and that's where Rumi-chan was waiting for her.
Yeah.
and then it cuts back and Rumi-chan puts on like a wig of Mima, and then just full out attacks her with an ice pick. Just goes absolutely like it's crazy. And then you got this fight, which I really loved because you had this. It's quite a dark film, but then you had this really colourful, like pop idol Mima attacking like the really like desaturated kind of,
yeah. Well, I've got like I was going to say, the film actually starts off quite desaturated, kind of muted tones, and then as the shit starts to hit the fan and she doesn't know what reality is and stuff like that, colour starts to get injected into the film more so, and things get more saturated and things like that. But so the fight scene though, doesn't it it becomes daylight at some point, doesn't it?
Yeah. Does it? Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, because the car comes toward, like, because they have the fight outside that shop.
Yeah,
and then they break the window, and then the agent like falls over and then stabs herself in the stomach, and then staggers in front of a truck, and then Mima saves her from the.
Yeah, she looks at the truck like it's stage lights, doesn't she?
Yeah.
And she imagines herself back on stage again. Well, not back on stage, but. I really like that bit when she sees herself in the window before it gets smashed, and you got Rumi looking at herself in the mirror.
Yeah, that was great.
And it's almost like she doesn't know if that's another vision, another person attacking her, or like it's just a reflection or what. Like that point, she's completely broken. And it's done without any words. It just the animation. It comes through really obviously.
And then it ends with her like in a kind of. Like a psychiatric ward, isn't it, where Mima goes to visit her old agent, and who still believes most of the time that she's still Mima.
Yeah.
And then what's the final line she says?
She says, "No, I'm real." I think
that's it.
Yeah. But she seems like she's kind of successful at that point. The nurses recognise her from the soap. Yeah, that's the whole film.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was fantastic, to be honest.
Me too. I was blown away by it, actually, I have to say. It's one of those films no one ever really tells me to watch, and I'm surprised by it because it's really good. Really good.
Like, I don't know if some of the... because I watched it in native Japanese and with subtitles, because I can't watch foreign films with dubs. It just doesn't work for me. I always have to... Even if I have to watch a film twice just so I can kind of read it and then more watch it the second time, I'll happily do that just because it feels more authentic and more...
Yeah.
Because I've also got the dubbed version and it just sounded... The voices just don't work for me, especially if you know... Like, I remember getting the dub of Akira years ago, and I was like, oh, well, Canada is voiced by the guy who voices Leonardo in the Ninja Turtles cartoon, so it just took me out of it straight away, do you know what I mean? So, like... Whereas if I watch in the native language, I feel like that is a character, that's a real person I'm watching on screen, whether it's animated or not.
Because like language is so intrinsic to the way people act, you know, you talk with your hands and you move your head at different times of when you're saying things.
Yeah,
I think when it's dubbed, there's always a displacement between what people are saying and the animation.
That, and I'm also concerned, especially with dubs, like we were speaking earlier, like you don't know what's cut out of it, what they've altered. No. Like, because I think the one version of Akira, because there's several dubs of Akira, and they alter the storyline because of the dialogue. And so I was concerned they might do that with this. Or it's quite a brisk film, though, isn't it? It's only like an hour and 20 minutes. It's quite a short, quick, breezy watch.
Short film.
But it packs a lot in it. It's very dense.
It packs a whole lot in it, yeah.
But it's not fast-paced either. I mean, it is. It's well-paced, but it's not like to the point where it's just rocketing through scenes. It's well-paced, and it's...
Yeah. It's I would say if you do have trouble watching subtitles, you know, I'm not gonna have a go at anyone for watching a dub.
No, I wouldn't say that to anyone. But the reason why I brought it up was because I don't know if some of my subtitles had a bit of, you know, when they just like. Do you remember when we used to watch Shaolin Soccer?
Yeah.
and it said kick the ball, or whatever. Like, I didn't know if there was a bit of that in it where it's got some of the words wrong, or a bit of the... Like, 'cause I know we probably watched the same version. I didn't know if some of the...
I think
it was a bit incorrect.
I think translation is a bit of an art. I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
It's not easy to translate something because words have multiple meanings and can be nuanced to it as well. But also, when you're putting subtitles on, you've got to make sure that the ability to read that line takes the same amount of time as the ability to say it in the language. So when it's cutting to other people talking, you're not getting messed up by it. So there will always be slight changes in the way things are said in a subtitle to fit in with the flow of the film. But I don't know if... I think the people who do this are very talented, and I think most of the time if it's a good subtitlist, it won't intrinsically change the language of the film and stuff. I think you do. I have done this before when I've watched because I'm a mentalist. I've watched like most of the Studio Ghibli films with English audio and English subtitles, just to see what the difference is. And do
you think it takes away
actually.
with?
Say that again.
Do you think it takes away though with like the English dubs?
Oh, it takes away. Yeah, I just do it. I actually just done it to see what the difference is. And
okay, got you.
And you can. It's quite funny how the dub and the subtitles are completely different sometimes, even though they're telling the same story. Because there's an art to doing all this, really.
So have you got any like other thoughts about the film?
I was surprised by it, actually. I didn't really know what I was going to get into with this. I kind of knew, and I kind of know Satoshi Kon. I mean, I've seen the rest of his films, but like I didn't know what this was going to be, and I was surprised how it really felt like an adult thriller. Like through and through.
Yeah.
And obviously it feels a lot like Black Swan. I know Darren Aronofsky says that he was influenced by it a little bit, but I think more than a little bit. It really is very similar.
But I mean, there were in the 90s, there was definitely a lot of these female-led kind of thrillers where, you know, you had single white female and things like that where, you know, someone wants to be someone else do you know what I mean? There was a lot of those kind of films around at the time. But it was weird. This definitely came out, like, for me in the 90s when there was the big, I say, manga boom, like, because manga was a company in the UK, I think, that put out anime films. I mean, when I was a kid, I thought manga made them. Like, now I realise they just distributed films like, from various different... Yeah. And so, like, the films that we probably watched, you know, like Akira, Ghost in the Shell, Pat Labor, which I think, didn't he work on one of the Pat Labor films?
I'm not sure,
I believe. Anyway.
But yeah, Ghost in the Shell. Even
so,
stuff like
you
Vampire
had all
Hunter
these... cyberpunky or, like, Crying Freeman or... what was the one? Ninja Scroll.
Oh, yeah.
All these kind of films. Then Perfect Blue, I'm pretty sure, was also out on manga as well. Probably. So it was this weird... film that didn't fit into the rest of these kind of like ultra I mean, I know it's violent as well, it definitely is violent, but it's got a lot more going on it than these other films. Probably Akira's another good one as well, though, definitely, for sure.
Though I actually think this is a controversial take. I think I like Steam Boy more than Akira. I was thinking about today, and I really love Steam Boy.
I need to see the proper version, like going back to the dub thing. I've only ever seen the dub version, and I think the proper version is longer as well. Yeah. And I think Anna Paquin voices Steam Boy, so you've kind of got this very effeminate voice for Steam Boy, which I think probably works for anime films because they look kind of effeminate anyway.
Well, you always get a lot of women voicing young men. No.
Yeah, it's true.
You also do get Patrick Stewart, though, voicing the grandfather, which is the best thing in the world, because he's doing it in his like Yorkshire accent. I was going to say, I think it comes at a time where maybe there's a reason I slept on this film a little bit, or I have a lot of people haven't seen it, is because it comes at a time when manga is really popular, manga the company, and this isn't one of those films. It's not like sci-fi. It's not fantasy. It's not.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. It just sticks out like a sore thumb out of that roster. It's not like the Guy overall or something like that. It's
which I kind of think I thought it was because I put it together with those films that were coming out at that time, And I love Ghost in the Shell. It's not saying that this is better about, but like this just. I didn't expect it to be so adult, and I didn't expect it to feel so prescient for kind of fan culture and like internet culture, I guess now, and that really surprised me about it actually.
But I mean, that just goes to show where we were in the UK and probably America in that time, whereas like with animation and stuff like that, whereas Japan were light years ahead in terms of having
absolutely.
You know, I still don't even think if you put out an animation now, like in the UK or America or whatever, it's still going to be treated as an animation. Like, you only have to look at the Oscars and see that they still have an animation category. It's like, no, like animation is not a genre.
No.
It's just another way of telling a story. And like, you could, like, for example, like, forget which year it was, but like Toy Story 3 or whatever was put up for best film, like overall, or WALL-E was, but it was also in the best animated film category. Why even bother having that animated category if you know it's gonna, if it's the only animated film up for best film, it's automatically gonna win best animated film, isn't it? Really?
Did they do that because Beauty and the Beast got for best picture?
Yeah, I think that's what they did, so it could at least win something.
I think I was saying this earlier but like, I don't think you could make this film in American or British animation, even now. I don't think anyone would let you do this as a kind of film, which is a shame because because it's an animation, it actually, I think, works better.
Well, I think Western animation is more centered on like squash and stretch and kind of like more obscure kind of animation. And I was going to say, the one thing I like about this film is it has references to like those over the top mangas and like the Power Rangers and stuff, but it's in the world they live in. So for example, it's a poster on the wall, or it's a comic book on the shelf.
Shot where like the classically big-eyed drawn kind of cartoon character takes over the whole screen, doesn't they? And
then it opens up and something. It's just like it's still in a Japanese style of animation, but a very much more realistic looking character. I
say that I'm not a big. I wanted to cover a Japanese animation film because I think it's important to watch foreign films. I think it's important to watch different types of films. I'm not a massive person who can talk at lengths about Japanese animation. I don't know a lot about it. I just know that what I watch, I like. You know, I know what I like and I don't. And I like Studio Ghibli films. I like what I've seen of like Japanese animation, and I know I like Satoshi Kon already. And kind of didn't surprise me, but it makes me want to watch more stuff like this does. This is animation that you don't get to see, as you say, from Western markets. I
mean, you've kind of got like Persepolis, which is another great one.
Yeah.
And like
The
Waltz with
Breadwinner
Bashir.
I was thinking of.
What's that, sorry?
The Breadwinner?
Oh, yeah. And then there's a Waltz with Bashir. Have you seen that one?
Oh, no, I haven't seen that, no.
So there's definitely like adult animation out there that's not just coming from Japan and stuff, but it's just about if people go and watch it or see it or not. Like as I said, like in the mid-90s, there was that massive boom of Japanimation when it just kind of like hit big time. I mean, like, I wouldn't say I'm the biggest fan of anime, but it's like saying I don't. It's so broad. There's so many different. Like, I think it's so easy to pigeonhole it into this one kind of style when it's not. There's hundreds of different. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I always don't like when people do that and they say, you know, I don't like blah. I don't like musicals, or I don't like Japanese animation. I don't like anime. I'm always curious. I'm like, no, there'll be something.
You only have to look back at the cartoons we watched as kids. Like, you know, if you even watch the real Ghostbusters, you can tell it's been animated in Japan. It has that quality to it. Like, you know, even like Prince Valiant and Jason the Wheeled Warriors and things like that, you can really tell. And then you look at the American-made cartoons that came out at the same time, like He-Man and stuff, where it's very kind of static and it uses what's called stock animation. So they'll have like He-Man runs animation loop, and they'll just use that, and then they'll animate like a little bit to go in between. and then they've got He-Man pick something up and throws it, stock animation. That's why you like. But in Japan, you don't. They've got a different ethic over there, and it seems to be very much more like they just don't tend to do that. They'll make the story as required. They won't fit the story to their limitations. But I think again, going back to like the American style, they probably worked normal hours, whereas I can imagine the Japanese animators probably work insane, like
especially if you work for Miyazaki.
Well, I looked at the budget for this film. Like the equivalent is less than $1 million at the time. So that's still, even today's money, is still not a lot of money for an animated film. And it shows in some sequences. Like some sequences has very little animation, or subtle movements, or background. Like a lot of the background characters don't tend to move, or if there's like a big group of people, it's just kind of static.
Okay.
But I didn't mind that. I thought it was all part. It fit the story.
There's a bit when you were talking about, I can't remember the term you used. I'm sorry. When you reuse footage in animation,
I like stock animation.
Stock animation. Yeah. There's a bit in this where it's after the pizza delivery murder, where she wakes up in bed, then wakes up again, and I thought that, I don't know if they used the exact same shot, but I felt like to me they were using kind of tricks from animation to tell the story a bit better.
Oh yeah,
it's meant to be this kind of retelling. It's meant to feel like a retelling, and I wondered if
I think it is. I agree. No, I think that's what they're doing with that. But you do, because animation is just so time consuming. Like it's so easy to fall in the trap of just doing loops and things like that.
Yeah.
But you kind of like, I have to do it because I'm a one-man person who has to make a 4-minute music video in a space of a month, and it kills you. But if you've got the time and the resources, you can create something a bit more like so. But like as I was saying, so you have scenes in this which are quite static, but then you'll have scenes of just where it's on 2s or 3s, but then you'll have like the staircase chase and the fight scene and stuff, which are really kinetic, and there's lots of movement and stuff going on. But I think each style works for that particular moment in time for the film.
Well, it's about directing animation as well. It's like, unlike film where you might just be setting up scenes constantly, I can't imagine directing an animated film, because you have to choose about those kind of options. Like, how is this going to look from every single point of it, and invent it from the ground up, really?
But you've got to think as well, if every character in the animated film in the background is moving, you might lose that focus the main character.
Yeah.
And if you have the background that's a bit more opaque, and less going on in it, you're going to focus on the storyline and what's being told to you, as opposed to like...
Yeah. It's also like knowing who's talking as well, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
In the same way, because I think it can be confusing with animation sometimes when it's not totally clear. Like when you haven't settled into knowing the voices, maybe that's what I mean.
Yeah. So okay, you're on Letterboxd. What are you going to give it out of 5?
Mine's at 4.5 probably.
Mine's a 5 banger on this one.
5 banger, yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
I thought it was, really is. And I know it's difficult to find anyone listening to this, but it's absolutely worth seeking out. It really is. And I think it will surprise you, even if you're one of these people who don't watch a lot of animation, or maybe don't watch a lot of Japanese animation. I think this will surprise you how much it works, and how much it has a different feel to it, maybe, that you're used to.
100%.
So I'm glad we watched that, man. And as I was saying, like, I'd like to hear your thoughts on animation side of it and things. So like, it's nice to try and do, I think, one animated film every miniseries we've got, because it'd be nice to kind of explore what was happening in that decade with animation.
Yeah.
And I think this was kind of a good pick because of how you said about the kind of that, the manga distribution company. That was a big part of, for me, in the 90s, really, about film. So like, I'm pretty sure, like, I'm trying to think what I was going to say now. It was they almost released them like it was a magazine. Like they would release a new film every month or whatever, and you picked it up like you'd pick up an issue of a magazine.
and it was so like
those magazines have like a toy on the front. Like
yeah,
that.
but it'd be like it'd be a VHS, and it'd be like it'd have 2 episodes of like the Guyver, or it would have a Fiat film on it, each one had like
Neo Evangelist,
a really long animated, trailers, which I can recite in my head. With the really like awkward, weird voiceovers and stuff like that, trying to make it seem super cool and violent and edgy. And it had like metal riff. Like for some reason, they felt like have you ever seen the Japanese version of the Street Fighter 2 movie?
Yeah.
It's so much better than the American one. Like the American one just puts metal music and stuff, which, granted, it was good because it got me into Korn and stuff like that when I was a kid. But it shouldn't be in that film. Like, why is it full of like? Whereas the actual film has got more traditional Japanese music in it, stuff like that, which works a lot better than Silverchair or Alice in Chains. Like,
kind of suits the setting a little better, doesn't it? Weirdly, I'm not sure how. Like, but it's where there's definitely good stuff out there, and we'll keep checking back and seeing stuff. Yeah, I mean, now and again, I love when a film surprises me like that. If you haven't seen it, Your Name absolutely floored me. That I
keep meaning to watch that one.
I really would recommend it. I don't want to say anything, but when that film turns, I found myself absolutely captivated by it, and the stuff like that works in animation so much differently than you can do it in other mediums. And I'm really glad that, and we got people are still making animated films that are trying to do something different. Anyway, should we get onto a box office game?
Oh, go on then.
So, this was kind of, I have to admit to this. I was going to admit to this at the start, and I forgot. Kind of controversial putting this in 1997. It got released at a festival in like September 1997, I think it was. But it doesn't actually it gets then a really slow release until February 1998 when it actually gets a general release in Japan.
Perfect Blue?
Yeah.
I think that's valid. I think it's fine. I think the first public screening is technically its release date.
I agree. That's the way I took it. But I think it wouldn't make it eligible for well, it wouldn't be Oscars anyway, but like awards might be different. Right. Whatever. But it doesn't get released in England until 1999 anyway.
One thing I was going to ask is, before you go on to your little quiz, why is it called Perfect Blue? Did I miss something?
Really good question. Really good question. I didn't even think of that. It's the name of the book as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know why it's called Perfect Blue.
Because I was trying to find out more information on the book and the live action version. The live action version looks incredibly cheap if you find it. Sure. But I couldn't find much information about the guy who wrote the original book, other than he wrote. Let me have a look. He wrote like fan guides and novels, and he wrote a book called Ultraman Visits the Grave, which is about a young boy who kind of encounters Ultraman. Oh. But yeah, couldn't find much information about the writer or anything.
Well, I've got an answer here from Satoshi Kon. So someone asks him what's the significance of the title Perfect Blue, and he says that that's a frequently asked question, and at the same time one I find very difficult to answer. To be honest, I used it because it was the title of the original novel. I presume the words had some significance, but as I changed the story, and probably the subject as well, I guess the meaning was lost in it. So I can only guess that because I didn't read the novel, I simply read through the rough plot, which was described as close to the novel in the project plan delivered to me. We did discuss changing the title, but I liked it. It sounded significant and mysterious, so we kept it.
Well, I mean, when I was scrubbing through the live action one, and if that's more like the book, I can see where he used animation to his benefit in that film, just to kind of make it bigger, and not bigger, but definitely like, a bit more broader and bolder. And but anyway,
I can't remember if we said this, but he saw the screenplay and he was really unhappy with it, so he basically rewrote it. To suit his kind of whims. It was and I think he brought on Saduki Murai, who I think he wrote Steam Boy. He might have had something to do with Akira as well. So he brought on this kind of group to him to go through this rough screenplay that he didn't like. And I think the fact that for his first film, Satoshi Kon took a screenplay and just completely twisted it to his wills really then set him forth for his career as like, this guy's got a vision and this guy, can do basically what he likes. And that's kind of his career was, he did what he liked, really.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, biggest weekends. So we'll do biggest weekend again. Start at number 10. This is July the 11th, 1997. It opens to 30 million. And it's a sci-fi comedy, I guess. Action.
July the 11th.
Yeah. The poster has them both introduced as Misters, the double header.
Misters?
Yeah, which is really weird.
Oh, is it Men in Black?
Yeah, it is Men in Black. The poster just says Mr. Jones, Mr. Smith above their names.
The two most generic surnames.
Yeah, two most generic surnames. And I just realised Tommy Lee Jones gets top billing in that, which I always thought was...
Yeah, he would have done it. I mean, that would have been like Will Smith's second film, or no, third. He would have done the Legend of Bagger Vance or whatever. Bad Boys and Independence Day.
Was Bagger Vance before Men in Black?
I believe so, yeah.
Huh. I didn't think that. Yeah, Men in Black. We all talked about it. It's great. March 21st, 1997. 31 million opening weekend. It is a comedy, and it's a reunion of director and actor.
It's a comedy.
Yeah.
Anything else to go by?
Yeah, it's a very big comedy star who's returning to the director who made him.
Is it Liar?
It is
Tom
Shadyac.
Shadyac.
Tom Shadyac.
One thing we kind of talked about one of his films last week, didn't we, or one of the other weeks, and we never kind of got into like what happened to Tom Shadyac, because it's quite sad.
Yeah,
he had that accident and then he got
into his bike, didn't he?
Yeah, he gave up filmmaking. Well, kind of gave up filmmaking, but then gave up all of his possessions and.
Yeah.
But I think he was going that way beforehand, because didn't he try and make Evan Almighty like an eco-friendly production or something?
Yeah, look into the production of Evan Almighty. It's insane. It's like the first carbon neutral or green film to be made. So everything had to offset. So everything they had to build, they had to plant trees and stuff like that. And it made the budget the most expensive comedy ever made. And he was obsessed with selling it as like a kind of serious eco message, when the world just saw it as a silly sequel to Bruce Almighty.
I wonder if they ever tried to get Jim Carrey for that one.
They probably tried, but he kind of doesn't do sequels, does he? That's his big thing. I know he ended up doing Dumb and Dumber 2, but...
And Ace Ventura 2.
Yeah, that was always the kind of the exception that makes the rule, I think. That was probably because it was bad. Okay, so number 8 is a horror sequel. Comes out December 12th, 1997, which is weird release for a horror film. 32 million.
Scream 2?
It is Scream 2.
Because that came out quite quickly after the first
that comes out, yeah.
Yeah.
This is... I'll do this one last. So I skipped to number 6, which is December 26th, opening weekend. So yeah, this makes 35 on its opening weekend in December. It ends up growing to be the biggest film of all time.
I wonder what film this is. Could it be Titanic?
This one is interesting. January 31st, 1997. 35 million. 20th Century Fox. It is a... how do you say it? It's an old picture they're just re-showing.
An old film they're re-showing?
Yeah.
Oh, I think I know.
I think you are. I won't say anything else.
No, because that's 2000. No,
97.
1997 is the year they've re-released the Star Wars films.
Yes, it is.
So I'm guessing it's the first one.
Yeah, New Hope. Yeah,
New Hope.
that's insane. 5th opening biggest weekend of that year was just New Hope.
What did you get?
35 million opened to on that weekend. And of course, that was all year. They just kept on releasing the Star Wars films, didn't they? I think me and you went to order them, if I remember.
Yeah, we did. I've still got all the stubs. I proper got motion sickness watching the speeder bike chase in Return of the Jedi. I remember that really working for me on the big screen.
I don't remember much about watching them on the big screen at all.
Well,
really
big
don't.
is the operative word. We watched them at the Odeon in Sutton Coldfield, where the screens aren't particularly that big. I think my TV in my living room is bigger than one of the screens there.
Well, it is now, but my old CRT when I was living at my parents' house as a kid, I think might have been smaller. Might have. But they were the special editions then, weren't they?
Yeah.
So that was the first kind of step into it.
Yeah, 100%.
And that was when everyone got to see Jabba the Hutt and
that
shot
Jabba
first.
looks... Even in the version they've released now, he still looks... They've changed the model, but it still looks terrible.
It looks awful.
It's so dark. It's so like saturated and like the one before just looked like this horrible lump. Like I know he's meant to look like a lump, but at least he's looked like a realistic lump.
You know, when you see Jabba puppet later on, the Jabba puppet has so much nuance to the puppetry. Like the eyes are slightly misaligned, and there's so much texture to him. And
I know the CGI model's handcrafted, but I'm sure they probably went, "Oh, let's align that eye so it's perfect."
Yeah,
like
it doesn't look. I
remember watching the making of Attack of the Clones and how they tried to make the Yoda in that look like the Yoda in but like you can't replicate the physical jaggle of a puppet's ears as you move it along, and it just happens. Its ears happen to just bounce along because it's a rubber puppet. When you add that into CGI, it's not going to work.
I hate the CGI Yoda more than any other character in those films. It's just, it doesn't feel like Yoda. It doesn't look like Yoda. He's a dick. I don't know why anyone likes Yoda.
I prefer the shitty puppet one from Phantom Menace before they changed it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And I really like them. I'm so glad they had a puppet in Last Jedi. I was so happy that he was a puppet.
I'm glad he wasn't spinning around and crawling in chutes and...
Oh man, you have to watch the making of that. It's called The Director and the Jedi or something like that, and it's on the disc. And just watching them shoot that film is just wonderful. Just watching Mark Hamill with Frank Oz underneath him with the puppet stuff, and it gave me proper feels of like what I love about film. And anyway,
I can't remember what this was on, but the fact that Ghost Yoda comes and sits on a log in Last Jedi is the fact that it's firmly established that Force ghosts like to sit on logs. That's what they do. Anyway, back to this. July 25th, 1997 opens to 37 million. It's by Sony. It's a proper single-header kind of film, like one lead, huge star. And it's directed by like a European kind of action director.
Is it The Fifth Element?
No. That made no money.
Did it not?
Yeah, The Fifth Element was a bomb.
To be fair, me and you saw it on Pound Day when cinemas are £1, so it probably didn't make much
this.
When did it come out? Sorry, June or July?
This one, July.
And it's a European filmmaker.
Yeah, it's a European filmmaker, big action filmmaker. It's got a huge star as the lead, just his name over the poster. Connected to Star Wars.
Connected to Star Wars. Oh, is it Harrison Ford?
It is. Playing
It's Con Air. No, not Con Air. The Air Force One. No.
Air Force One, yeah. Which is actually alright. It kind of holds up if you watch it. The director's Wolfgang Peterson. That's
okay. That's two people we've talked about today that were going to direct like a Batman Superman film. So you had George Miller who's going to do Justice League, and I don't know if you've seen his leaked photos of his costumes.
No, I haven't.
And stuff. They don't look that great.
Yeah, but the fact that he doesn't make Justice League and then goes on to make Fury Road makes me really wish to know what his Justice League would have been.
Well, there's apparently documentaries being made about it, and I just hope it at least looks better than that Superman Returns one that looked like garbage. But,
I've trouble watching documentaries about films that weren't made. I think they're rarely engaging.
I was going to say Doomed was quite good, but that film's actually made, but it never came.
Yeah.
But yeah, Wolfgang Peterson was meant to do the original Batman v Superman, wasn't he?
Was he? I thought that was
where it was going to be like Josh Hartnett or Jude Law, someone like that was going to be in it. I think even Christian Bale was the front runner for Batman in that one, so he was like on the studio's radar for a while for Batman.
I didn't know that at all. God, everyone wants to make a Batman film. No one else. Anyway, number one film of the year, biggest weekend, opens to 72 million. Universal Picture. It is a sequel to a huge film, like groundbreaking film, and one of the only sequel that this director's ever done, I think.
Oh. The Lost World.
Hang on. Which is not.
Yeah, is that his only sequel? No, he's done all the Indiana Jones ones.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, my bad. Yeah, I was just trying to think when I was thinking about it. Then and I just immediately thought he doesn't do sequels, but yeah, okay, the Indiana Jones films. And what can you say about Lost World? It's kind of boring.
It has got some good action sequences though. Like the T-Rex scene is pretty good in that film, I think. But like the character of, like, I understand that Ian Malcolm would have gone through a lot in Jurassic Park and it may have changed him a little bit, but it was almost like Jeff Goldblum was playing a completely different person.
Yeah.
It's like, who is this person? Like, who is he? Like,
his character Ian Malcolm should never be involved in anything again about Jurassic Park.
Well, tough titty, he is.
I know.
I don't understand why these three characters are going to come back again to fight dinosaurs or whatever they're going to do. Like, is it like the Avengers Assemble? Jurassic Park team assemble.
Assemble.
As long as William H. Macy comes and joins the team, then I'm on board.
I was going to say, is Vince Vaughn going to turn up?
Yeah, with his camera and his crowbar.
I love that this era of Vince Vaughn, they were trying to make him into like an action star.
I don't know what I am. But now he's become like a dramatic actor again.
I've heard that, yeah. I've heard that. I did watch him on Curb this season.
Because he's in the new film with Mel Gibson called something Pavement. Oh shit, what's it called?
That sounds like two nice people that have teamed up together. I don't know anything about Vince Vaughn. He might be a very nice person.
I'm trying to think. I just need to know what the name of that. Stomped on Concrete?
Smashed Against Concrete or something, isn't it?
That's it, something like that. But he's worked a lot with that director. I think he's done a few films with him. Where is it? Dragged Across Concrete.
Dragged Across Concrete, okay.
And that guy has directed Brawl in Cell Block 99, which has also got Vince Vaughn in it. And he directed Bone Tomahawk, which was actually pretty good.
Okay.
So if you haven't seen Bone Tomahawk, check that one out.
I haven't.
It's got it's Kurt Russell, and it's a western, but it's got like cannibals and stuff in it, so it's well worth a watch.
Do you remember did you come to see the remake of Psycho with me?
No, the Gus Van Sant one, no.
Yeah. And because you know, like how Vince Vaughn plays what's his face? His name. I can't remember the character's name now. Norman Bates.
Bates.
Which at the time was really weird because it was Vince Vaughn playing Norman Bates. And I wonder if you go back and watch it now, it's even weirder. Like that Vince Vaughn, like Wedding Crashers, Vince Vaughn is playing Norman Bates in this weird remake of Psycho.
Is he doing he's fast talking?
Yeah.
Because like that's what he's known for, and like Norman Bates is known for like not really saying much.
All I remember, there's a scene when he jacks off behind a wall, like staring through like a peephole.
See, I can only because I haven't seen that film. Owen Wilson should play the mom, the corpse of the mom. Wow.
I can't do Owen Wilson. Wow. Anyway, I guess that's the end.
Was Batman and Robin not one of the highest grossing weekends?
Oh, did I skip? I think I skipped it.
I assume that would have been one of the highest, even though it flopped. I imagine
it definitely is one of the highest. I think I messed up.
I'm sure we'll end up talking about that when we get to Batman and Robin. No, yeah. Batman Forever.
I'm interested in watching Batman and Robin again, actually.
Well, I'm going to watch it because I think it goes hand in hand with Forever. To be honest, so
I'll watch Forever and Robin together and see what's going on. Yeah, Batman and Robin was the third. I skipped Batman and Robin by accident. And Men in Black was a second because I accidentally did it as the 10th. But it doesn't matter. That some errors are made. But,
you've amended for it, so it's okay.
I amended for it. I apologise.
So what are we talking about next week?
I can't remember what week's next week. 1998. We're doing The Last Days of Disco.
Okay, I don't really know anything about this film at all.
That's a good way to go into films.
It's true.
It's directed by a kind of a luminary, Wilt Stillman.
Okay.
Whit, I think you pronounce his name. Sorry. Who is American writer director? He did Metropolitan, and Barcelona. He did like Last Days of Disco in 1998, and then he didn't make a film again until Damsels in Distress in 2011.
Okay.
And Last Days of Disco is one of those films that's been really reevaluated and talked about, and recently got its Criterion Collection release. So
who's in that?
That's Chloe. I can't never pronounce her name. Sevigny.
Oh, she's in a lot of the Larry Clark and
yes,
who's the guy who did Gummo?
I can't remember his name, but yeah.
It is Harmony Korine.
That's it.
Yeah, and she's most famously for giving Vincent Gallo, a blowjob in, is it Brown Bunny?
Is it Brown Bunny? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we'll talk about Brown Bunny next week. And also Kate Beckinsale is the other lead of the film.
Okay.
It's probably her first, maybe, I don't know.
I think she was in Shopping, which was by the guy who did the Resident Evil movies.
WS.
Yeah, and
W.S. Anderson.
I think at that point as well, she may have done something fish.
Shooting Fish.
Shooting Fish, that's the one.
Yeah. She'd done Emma as well by that point, and she'd done Much Ado About Nothing as well.
She seems to have gone the route of like Mila Jovovich, like these kind of like not low budget, that's not fair, but like action film, like female-led action films where they're wearing like PVC like cat suits and fight.
Well, you just
monsters.
Mean Underworld, don't you? She did a lot of Underworld films.
She did like what's the other one with Hugh Jackman? Van Helsing.
Van Helsing. I forgot that film existed.
That's hilarious, that film. I've only seen it once, but for some reason I can remember everything that happens in that film. It's like it's just burnt in my mind.
I don't remember a thing from it at all. At all.
I remember her head in the clouds at the end as she's like ascending to heaven. It's like her big head in the clouds, and she's been reunited with her brother who she's like seeking the whole of that film. That film like reeks of a film that was just every day they rewrote the script, so it was like it was never consistent with itself. It was just bonkers.
Oh, the fact that film exists and Hugh Jackman's in it is just amazing. Dark Universe. It wasn't Dark Universe, but...
All right, with that said, I guess it's time to wrap it up now. Don't forget, you can find us on Twitter. We are at Adjust Your Track with a YR, not a your. We're also on YouTube now, so you can check us out there. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts. Give us a rate, review, and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. And remember, the picture's bad. Always adjust your tracking.